Will the 2024 presidential election lead to a civil war? Today's video, we're going to discuss some scenarios that are going to happen on election night, inauguration day, and would they lead to a civil war? Hey guys, Titan Apprentice, welcome back to the channel. As I said in the intro, today's video is going to be on elections, inauguration days, and possible civil war. Let me start this video off by saying these are my own thoughts, and these thoughts do not reflect any person, community, or organization that I may or may not work for or may not be associated with. These are my own thoughts. These are my own opinions. What are the scenarios that we could face on election night, what they would lead to on that night, what they would lead to on inauguration day, and if they would lead to a civil war? The first scenario, Harris wins the presidency, free, fair, open, and honest. There's no collusion. There's no interference. She wins. 2 a.m. Donald Trump comes out and he says, you know what, we fought a good fight, but we lost. Is that going to lead to protests that night? No, probably not. Very few and far between. On inauguration day, would that lead to protest? Few and far between. You'll still have people walking around with Trump shirts, but that's about it. Would that lead to a civil war as long as it's open, free, fair, honest? No. Scenario number 2, Donald Trump wins. Free, fair, open, and honest election. Harris comes out 2 a.m. and says, you know what, we fought a good fight. He's the better candidate. He won. You're going to have a couple protests that night. A couple people are going to be mad and upset that their candidate didn't win, but it's not going to be that bad. On inauguration day, probably the same thing, right? A couple people walking around in Harris t-shirts saying, she could have won. It is what it is, right? Will that lead to a civil war? No. Are you going to have a bunch of people upset and butthurt about it? Yeah. Are you going to have protests every month of the year for like the next 4 years like we did in 2016? Yeah. Scenario number 3, Harris wins the election, but it's collusion. It's interference. There's something fishy about it. Donald Trump comes out at 2 a.m. and says, I'm not conceding. I didn't lose this election. She won, but it was interfered. Is that going to lead to protest? Of course, we saw it in 2020. Is that going to lead to protest on inauguration day? Of course, we saw it in 2020. Now, depending on who you ask, what that day in January was, some people say it was a attempted overthrow of the government. Some people say that they were led in by the ABC boys. Is that going to lead to a civil war? Probably not, right? It didn't lead to one the last time. It's probably not going to lead to one this time. Chances are really low that we're going to have a civil war because of interference. Number 4, Donald Trump wins, but there is collusion, there's interference, there's some sort of situation going on. We saw this in 2020, right? Clinton came out and said, oh man, I would have won, but it was Russia. Did that lead to protests that night? Of course. Did that lead to protests during inauguration day? Of course. Was he still sworn in and served 4 good years as a president? He did. Did that lead to civil war? It did not. Scenario number 5, we don't know who wins on election night. This happened in 2000. Al Gore versus George Bush. We didn't know who the president was for like, I don't know, a month. Did that lead to a civil war? No. Cool. So what scenario would lead to a civil war? Donald Trump has been attempted assassinated twice this election cycle. Apparently there's like 4 or 5 in total since he started running as president, but these were the latest 2. One, the shooter did get a shot off and took out his ear. Luckily it's re-healed since then. And the other one, the shooter did not get a shot off. But, they keep questioning, how do we know that these aren't Republicans? It's very weird. Look at the social media profiles, look at who they support, look at who they're giving money to, and ask yourself which political party they stand with. It's very weird. It's very easy. See where the money goes. I will say there is a saying that says the third time's a charm. So if you believe you want a civil war, wait for the third time, and you're going to get a civil war. Like him, hate him, think he's Jesus, think he's Hitler. He is the leading candidate. You have to beat him in a political space. You cannot try to take him out. Period. If you do, you will have civil war on your hands. This is my opinion. These are my thoughts. That is the only thing that's going to lead to a civil war. A lot of Democrat people that I talk to say if a civil war happens, the military is going to handle the Republicans. The conservatives, the MAGA people, the people that are going to cause issues. They think that they're unaffected. They think that they won't be touched. They think that if a civil war happens, that it's going to be their go-to day-to-day lives, and that the military is going to handle the problem. Again, my personal opinions, my personal thoughts, the military has more important shit things to do than worry about who's shooting who in a town. We have very important items that need protecting. The military's job, in case of a civil war, would be to protect those important things. Maybe you move those things into a centralized location, that way they are easier to protect. Maybe you don't. One thing you don't do is you don't abandon your post to go deal with gang warfare. We do have a ton of people who are in the military. We do have a ton of people who are in the National Guard, in the reserves, in the active units. There's a lot of people, but there's also a lot of bases, and those bases have a lot of important things on them. Some, not so much. Some do. You protect those bases. Not all of them, but you protect the important ones. That's where your people go. Not all the people, but those important bases are going to be very well protected, because you don't want people jumping the fences and getting into the important items. So then you still have, I don't know, 50% of the military that might be able to be used in gang warfare. How many of them are going to do that? I don't know. Are you supposed to follow orders? Yes. Would people follow orders if it meant going to their old hometowns and destroying that town? I don't know. Minusing the military, right? Then what do you have? A lot of left-leaning people think it's going to be a spectator sport. If a civil war happens, you're going to have the military, and you're going to have MAGAs, and they're going to go to town and fight each other, and the left side leaning people are going to be sitting watching. Because that's what happened during the first Civil War. You had people who were not part of the war initially, who knew that this battle was going to take place, so they sat up on the hillside and watched it as though it was a spectator sport. And then what happened? People from both sides started running into the crowd. People started dying. That sucked. You went there to watch a game, a sport, an event, and now little Jimmy's shot and dead. They also weren't involved initially until the Confederates or the Union started going through their homes and their neighborhoods and stealing their food, killing their livestock, taking anything that they could because they weren't getting enough to eat. So if you think you're going to be a spectator in this, just know probably not. What would happen if a civil war broke out? This is my opinion. This is my thoughts, okay? Understand our government can function underground without being touched. This is not 200 years ago. This is not the Civil War of Abraham Lincoln. Our governments can function underground without needing extra resources. They have the shelters that they can stay in for a long time. There is enough resources under there for, I would say, almost every member of Congress or the Senate to go, and they have communications between them, and they can protect themselves. Do you think that your congressmen, that your senators, that your president give a shit about you? Nope, sure don't. So what they're going to do, the government, is going to go and hide, because that's what they're doing. They're going to go and hide underground and let you fight it out. Let you hit each other, let you shoot each other, let you wipe one another out. We have too many people in America anyway, so hey, you do you, boo-boo. I'm going to put the bases on lockdown, prevent anyone from coming in, prevent anyone, basically an SOS type thing. That don't mean save our ship. They're going to protect the resources and then clear up afterwards. This is not the same war of Abraham Lincoln. Back then, the most coolest technology was the telegraph. People were still using steam engines. People were still lighting their homes with candles and oil. They didn't have a lot. We now function in an electric society. You're watching this on a smartphone, getting communications from a satellite somewhere up in space. Your water is connected to your power. Your power is connected to the grid. Everything you know and own is connected to the grid somehow. One of the easiest things that they could do is when the fighting starts, the power stops. How many people can function without electricity? Not a lot. Now, I know a lot of people will say, oh, you don't need electricity to survive. But yeah, you do. So what happens when the fighting starts? The government goes underground, calls up these power plants and says, you know what, shut it down. You got some protesters in your area that could get to your resources, go ahead and lock her down. Then you lose power. You lose water. You lose everything. Your money that was on your phone is gone. Your crypto investments are gone. Your insurance is gone. Your communication is gone. Everything you know and love is gone. Communication goes out. Logistics go out. The money you had on your phone, you cannot go and swipe a card and buy groceries because the grocery store is out of power. Because the communication is down, so your debit card is nothing but a piece of plastic. Do that for a month, 2 months, 6 months. People will take care of themselves. Political parties are out the window. If you watch the Civil War movie, it wasn't a great movie, but if you watched it, people didn't know who they were fighting most of the time. Why are you shooting that guy? Because she shot at us. Well, who is he? We don't know. What side's he on? We don't know. He shot at us, so we shot at him. You shut off the power for 10 to 15 days. Political parties don't matter. You shut off the power for a month. Nothing matters. Oh, I voted for this guy. It doesn't matter. You gonna go get that water, or am I gonna shoot you? Oh, I voted for this guy. That's fine. Give me your cans of beans, or I'm gonna take you out. A lot of people think, man, I'll have my group of people, and we're gonna take on this group of people. No. Because how long are you prepared to go for that? Sure, maybe you're ready. You're willing to fight for the good cause. But your wife and kids, are they? Are they ready to be without power for a month, a year, weeks at a time, years at a time? Maybe, maybe not. Are you ready for your children to starve for multiple weeks at a time? Well, it's fine. I got guns and ammo. Okay, well, where's the next opposing camp? Are you going to go 100 miles to go to that next opposing camp? Or are you going to go next door where the guy has food and groceries and you take him out first? It would dissolve so quickly from, hey, left versus right, blue versus red, to me versus you. Don't worry about the military. Don't worry about nuclear weapons and A-10 warthogs and drone strikes. Worry about that neighbor. You cut him off in traffic one day. Well, he's going to get his revenge. He knows that you have a grocery store in your backyard. He knows that you prep up, you stock up. He knows that you own guns and ammo. Maybe once he gets hungry enough, he's going to come for you. Then again, the military comes in a year later by orders of the government that has been living underground, and they clean up the mess. A year without power? It's going to be a rough time. You don't need power to survive, a lot of people say, but you need it for logistics. You need it for water. You need it for communication. You need it for, basic everyday life. You might not need it to survive, but your neighbor would probably kill you for that generator. What side's he on? Who knows? What political affiliation does he have? Does it matter? If he's shooting at you, are you going to ask him who he voted for? Nope. But he's going to come after you for that can of soup, for that generator, for that gallon of water you got, for that water filter. But yet you're here worried about who's voting for who. If civil war breaks out, left versus right, blue versus red is no longer a thing. Gray versus gray. Just something to think about. That's all I got for today's video. Y'all stay safe out there.